All right, I think it's time for me to start. Hi, I'm Taylor Heaton. I'm the founder of Mom on the Spectrum, and I'm here today to talk with us about autistic inertia and demand avoidance. So, these are two terms that have made a really big difference for me in understanding life on the autism spectrum. I was diagnosed later in life, about 6 years ago when I was 31. And understanding that I am autistic has given me a lot more self-compassion and understanding. It's helped me include more accommodations in my life that make things a little bit more manageable. So I'm looking forward to sharing more about these topics with you today. And I want to thank Autism Connect for inviting me to speak with their audience. So hello, and if this is my first time connecting with you, then it's really nice to be connected with you, and I hope that you'll hope we can stay connected. You can find me Mom on the Spectrum on YouTube. So let me share my presentation here with you. Okay, I'm going to pull the chat up so I can make sure. All right, I want to make sure that the presentation is showing. Okay, so let's start our presentation here. So I mentioned a little bit about me. I was late diagnosed. I'm a mom of two autistic kids. My YouTube channel is Mom on the Spectrum. And I started my channel because understanding that I'm autistic has changed my life in really incredible ways, mainly more self compassion, grace for my differences, and ability to communicate. This is a really big thing. I feel like one of the greatest gifts for me has been having language to talk about my experiences, to be able to communicate with my loved ones about the things that are challenging and stressful for me, and just to understand the things that are challenging and stressful for me. And that's part of what we're going to get into with the autistic inertia and demand avoidance. Okay, so we're going to talk about what is autistic inertia. We're going to talk about practical examples of that. We're going to talk about demand avoidance and tips for navigating executive functioning difficulties. Um, Quickly, executive functioning, those are processes that happen in the prefrontal cortex of our brain. And that's things like decision making, planning, follow through, long term thinking, strategy. Those things can become quite difficult for us sometimes. And we're going to talk about things that other people can do to help. Okay, so what is autistic inertia? So in physics, the term inertia is the tendency for an object to stay in the same state of motion, including no motion, unless something external changes it. So this is commonly stated as, many of you have heard this, an object in motion tends to stay in motion unless stopped or changed by a force, and an object at rest tends to stay at rest unless changed or moved by a force. So in this context, it's not an object that has inertia, but a person's attention, thinking, or movement. Autistic people tend to stay on one task or no task at all unless stopped or started by a major outside force or tremendous act of will. Okay. A lot of people in my community resonate with that. Yes, it takes a tremendous act of will to change what I'm doing or to start something new. It applies both to getting started on a task or focus, as well as stopping once you're engaged in something. And then there's some extra information there. Autistic inertia can also be related to other conditions that often accompany autism, such as anxiety, executive dysfunction, as I mentioned uh, earlier, and catatonia, which is a lack of responsiveness to the environment or physically freezing. That's an important term. If that resonates with you, that could be a helpful term for further exploration. Okay, so kind of a brief overview of what autistic inertia kind of feels like and looks like. Let's start on the blue. I don't know if you can see my mouse. Let's start in the blue right here. So the internal experience of inertia kind of feels like a tendency to maintain one state, a lack of voluntary control, difficulty finding the first step. So let's say you're stuck in bed. You can't, like, it feels insurmountable. It feels very, very challenging to get up and go to the kitchen. So you can't even think about how to get to that next step, right? And there's a disconnection between your intention, like, I want to do this, and the follow through or the action. So I want to go to the kitchen and make breakfast, but the follow through is not there. Then we're going to move over to external. Oops, sorry. The green boxes down here, external factors, outside factors that affect inertia could be activity in the environment. So I know for many of us, if there's people in the home, if there's other people in the home, sometimes that causes us to feel like we're being perceived or observed, and it kind of changes our actions. Other people's expectations, and that can feel like a demand, which kind of goes into demand avoidance, which we'll hit in just a few minutes. The yellow boxes here, the effects of autistic inertia on how someone feels, maybe constantly exhausted, maybe stress and overload, difficulty meeting needs. So I know I need to shower, I know I need to brush my teeth, but very difficult to do that. And then effects on your emotions, right? You might feel overwhelmed, stressed, anxious, confused. Why do I want to do this, but I can't? And then the red boxes over here affect on how the person lives. So you might notice difficulty maintaining relationships and reduced productivity. Here's a few kind of examples or just some extensions of autistic inertia, what this can look like. We'll start here at the top. Difficulty starting, stopping, and changing tasks. Challenges transitioning between tasks. Transitions are very difficult for many of us. It can make it hard to refocus on the task if you're interrupted. Difficulty starting a task, but then hyper focus for long periods. So once you're in it, especially if you're interested in it, like especially if there's an ADHD component, once you get focused on something, sometimes you can't stop focusing on it. Feeling unable to start the next task or feeling stuck on the current task. It's also associated with indecisiveness, anxiety, and perfectionism. I feel called out by that one. It's affected by difficulty planning or breaking down tasks into smaller parts. And it has similarities and overlaps with ADHD. Okay, a few examples from the autistic community of what this can look like. First one says, I am sitting on the sofa and not doing anything. My book's on the sofa next to me and I want to read it, but I just sit there as though I'm unable to move for several minutes. It's only when my sister walks in the room that I find myself picking up the book and starting to read. The next example says, I'm lying in bed scrolling through social media on my phone. I'm desperate to go to the loo, but I just can't stop what I'm doing or get up and make the short journey to the bathroom. It's only when I'm about to wet the bed that I use all my willpower and set my body in motion. And I want to mention there's a component that can also make that more challenging, and that's the component of interoception. So interoception is our body's ability to detect internal cues like feeling hungry, thirsty, needing to go to the bathroom. And sometimes autistic individuals, our interoception is off. So we might not know we're hungry or thirsty or need to go to the bathroom until it's an emergency. And then the last example here says, I'm thirsty and need a glass of water. So I go into the kitchen. There are no clean glasses, which means I will have to wash one. I didn't see this coming and I hadn't built it into my plan of action. So I just walk out of the kitchen and continue being thirsty. Now, these examples might sound silly, but these are really, these are some pretty common examples of what it can feel like to have difficulty with autistic inertia. Okay, let's switch over here to demand avoidance. So I like to talk about these two concepts together because they feed off of each other. Demand avoidance involves not being able to do certain things at certain times, either for yourself or others. It also refers to the things we do in order to avoid demands. Autistic people may avoid demands or situations that trigger anxiety or sensory overload, disrupt routines, involve transitioning from one activity to another. So that's autistic inertia can be part of that. And activities or events that they don't see the point of or have any interest in. This is a big one in the community. If we don't see the point of it, if we don't know the why behind it, it's really, really hard for us to get involved in that. And my cat just jumped on the desk and is like walking around and my camera's shaking a little bit. So if you notice that, my cat always sits just outside of the camera lens. So it looks like nothing's happening, but I promise he's there. Okay, when we deal with these types of situations, we might refuse to participate, we might withdraw, or we might shut down or escape in order to avoid these things. Okay, some examples of demands. This really surprised me when I saw this. this visual, demands are everywhere. So demands can be laws that we have to follow, social rules, verbal instructions, menus. Okay, that was a really enlightening thing for me. Like maybe you go out to eat with friends and you're looking at a menu and you have to order something off of it, right? That can feel like a demand. Order something, right? Timetables, questions, relationships can feel like a demand. Written instructions, signs, signs that are posted when you're driving or at school. All of these things, recipes, these can be perceived as demands that can really add stress to autistic people's lives. Okay, so an autism PDA profile, what is PDA? PDA is a pathological demand avoidance. I'm about to sneeze. Sorry. So this is, I'm going to talk about this one at the top right here. Um, Perceived loss of autonomy activates an extreme threat response. So autonomy is our ability to make decisions for ourselves. Anytime that's threatened, that can result in an extreme response. My cat's trying, it's raining here. My cat's trying to figure out how to get over here in my lap, but uh, he is okay. I'm distracted by my cat. I'm sorry. Sometimes we don't perceive social hierarchy. This is a big one for autistic people as well. So, your boss or lawmakers, this kind of stuff. Like sometimes if we don't understand the why behind it, then we're going to push back. We're going to have trouble following those demands issued by anybody in a social hierarchy because we're like, what makes you better than me, right? We might use social strategies as part of our avoidance, like like becoming immobilized, like my legs don't work or I have a headache, or, we'll find different things that are socially appropriate so that we can avoid demands. We might appear sociable on the surface. And oftentimes, especially for women, this causes us to be less likely to be identified as autistic. And we might resist and avoid the ordinary demands of life, like brushing our teeth, stuff like that. We might also, this one at the bottom, gravitate towards obsessive behavior. Sorry, the other component of this, I'm rearranging my office, and so my desk has stuff all over it, and so my cat is like trapped behind the piles on my desk. There's a lot happening over here. Okay, so obsessive behavior, because whenever things feel out of control, sometimes we will exert control by becoming excessive about something. Okay, and then I really like this chart. It's helpful to have a lot of time with this chart, but I'll just briefly kind of show you the progression of what things can feel like when demands are issued. So you might start here at the bottom, feeling calm, capable, able. A demand is issued. Let's say your boss gives you a deadline. You might start finding reasons to be distracted. You might give excuses why you can't do it. You might procrastinate until it becomes an emergency and you have to do it. The next phase is kind of physical incapacitation. So, maybe you get a headache, maybe your stomach hurts. Then maybe you might withdraw into fantasy. So rather than actually doing things, you might escape into a fantasy world where there's no demands on you and you can do whatever you want. And you might reduce meaningful conversation. So this is kind of me. Like if I feel threatened with demands, I'm just going to kind of retreat. I'm going to stop talking. I'm going to shut down. I become less verbal or nonverbal. Um, because again, if I don't understand the why behind something, but you're still wanting me to do it, I'm going to kind of distance myself from that situation. The next stage would be maybe taking control. So again, when things feel out of control, sometimes we go towards it and we're like, well, I'm just going to control everything then. Or complete compliance, which could be fawning. I don't know if anybody's heard of that. There's stress responses. You've probably heard of freeze, fight, flight, or freeze, right? But there's also fawning, which is pretending like everything's okay. And I know a lot of times women do this. So, in the face of demands, pretending like everything's okay, but then later having a complete breakdown. That really tends to resonate with a lot of us. And then the final stage up here, this can look like upset, agitation, self harm. Sometimes we hurt ourselves when we're overwhelmed with demands. If you do that, please know there's no shame in that. That's your body responding to a lot of internal stress. And there are other ways, once you become aware of that pattern, there's other ways to channel that stress. You might shut down, you might become aggressive, or you might run away. And you'll notice here on this triangle that it says escalation can be very rapid, especially if you're pushed. So you might jump from blue all the way up to red. Just kind of depends on the person. Okay, so I said we are going to talk about navigating executive functioning challenges. I'm just going to list these off here for us today. So when we have trouble making decisions using that part of our brain, you can address sensory issues standing in the way. So are the lights too bright? Do you need comfortable clothing on? Is there a smell that's bothering you that you can distance yourself from? Keep a predictable routine when possible. I'm a single mom. I know that that's not always possible. So give yourself grace when it's not possible. Identify what the problem is, either out loud or in writing. Even if you can't do anything about it, sometimes it restores some of that autonomy, being able to voice what's bothering you. Excuse me. It's early over here. My voice is just waking up. Okay, remind yourself that you have your own way of doing things, and that's okay. Avoiding some things is okay too. Not all the time, but sometimes we can take stuff off our list. Engage in physical stims to move out excess energy. So, this is a big one for late diagnosed autistic adults. Oftentimes, we have been trained to stop stimming. At some point when we were younger, somebody said, stop doing that. That's annoying. Any repetitive behavior that we did got trained out of us. But I would like to argue that probably you have found a way to keep stimming in a discreet way, either twirling your hair, picking at your skin, scrunching your toes in your shoe because nobody can see you do that. We always find ways to stim because it's not just something that autistic people do, it's something we need to do. Like it's a necessity for us. You can also work on breaking the next task into simple steps and focus on only one step at a time. If you're open to using AI like ChatGPT, it can actually be really helpful for breaking down things that you need to do. So, hey, I need to clean out my closet. Can you help break this down into smaller tasks? It's really great for stuff like that. Consider having a regular time during the week where you think through what's coming up and write out a list or plan in advance. And use the snowball effect to create momentum by just starting somewhere. Start with something you actually have the energy for, even if it's not related to what you need to do. That helps me sometimes. Body doubling is when you ask a friend or a partner to complete a task alongside you. Hey, I need to go cook dinner. Can you come into the kitchen with me? So just having another person with you sometimes can help jumpstart the process. And then utilizing technology to help. So setting alarms on your phone, using a digital calendar with reminders, that kind of thing. And then our last thing here, things others can do to help, careful use of language. So we tend to take things literally. So just asking loved ones to be aware of that, like if how they speak really matters because we're going to internalize often what they say very literally. Communicate about changes in advance. Other people can help us adapt to sensory needs and keep sensory stimulation at a minimum. For example, I'm really overstimulated when the TV is on, especially if I'm not watching it. I don't have the TV on very often at all. So other people could, you could communicate that and they could, maybe ask if they could keep the TV volume down when you're over, things like that. They could offer you choices. And this is great for employers to know as well. Anytime you can offer choices rather than issuing one way of doing it, that builds autonomy into our lives, which helps us feel more regulated and capable. Avoid making demands whenever possible. If you don't have to issue a demand, don't. And become familiar with your signs of dysregulation. So for me, probably the people in my life know that when I'm stressed, I kind of stop talking. My eye contact is a lot less. I'm less touchy. Like I kind of withdraw into myself, and I seem to be like, to me, I feel kind of like I'm in a cloud, and I'm less interactive with other people. So when people become more familiar with your signs of dysregulation, they can kind of understand better what's going on and maybe give you a little bit of space. Oh, that's outdated. Okay, so I just wanted to share briefly that I do have a lot more resources on my website. The thing I'm most proud of is that I have weekly connection groups for autistic adults. These are weekly discussion groups where we meet together. You never have to speak unless you click the hand raise button. You're never called on. And a lot of people just listen in. Some people participate in the text chat. But this is a great way to just be around other autistic adults who get it. And actually, one of our groups was over autistic inertia and demand avoidance. We've had a group over burnout. We've had a group over boundaries, over AI, just kind of talking about what that means to us and how we use it or how we don't. They're really interesting groups, and I'd love for you to check them out. You can find a lot more information and free resources at momonthespectrum.life. You can also find me on YouTube. Just search for Mom on the Spectrum. And then on Instagram and TikTok, I'm under my name, Taylor_Heaton_. So thank you for joining me today. I'm going to check the text chat here to see if we had any questions coming in. I'd be happy to answer. No questions today. So thank you so much. And for those of you who are watching the replay of this, thank you for watching, and I hope to stay connected. All right. Bye.